Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Amanda Gerke. I'm with the Community Development Department, and we're here today to talk about a new revised special event permit application in the City of Alameda. So we have some folks who are here live listening to the presentation and others who are going to be listening to the recording. For folks that are here live, we have everyone on mute for the time being. But if you do have questions, you can save them to the end, or if it's particularly relevant to a topic I'm going over in the presentation, you can bring it up then. Um, so there we go. So just quickly, what we're gonna go over first is the revised special event permit application itself. Then we're going to talk about some changes to the process. Then we're going to touch a little bit on Alameda Point, and then finally we want to leave a ton of space for questions at the end. And related to that, we have with us today a number of representatives from different city departments who review special event permits who are here to answer your questions. So I'm going to ask folks to introduce themselves now. I'll just go ahead and call on them in the order they are on my screen. Elizabeth, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Elizabeth McKenzie. I'm in the city attorney's office, and I also serve as a city's risk manager.
All right, Captain Emmett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff Emmett with the police department and currently oversee our Bureau of Field Services.
All right, Philip.
Philip Lee, Public Works Department, Assistant Engineer in the Land Development Permits Division.
And Rena?
Rena Winston, Paralegal, Risk Management Assistant, and I take the first stab at reviewing the risk portion of permits.
And Eric?
Eric Fonstein, Development Manager with the Community Development Department. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah. Lois Butler, I see that you're on the line as well. I'm not sure if she can.
Lois Butler. I'm with the Economic Development Division, and I work with the special permits when they're large events. Thank you.
And last but not least, I wanted to call on Debbie Mendoza, who is not on camera right now, but if you have ever submitted a special event permit in the city of Alameda, you will know that Debbie is the one who makes it all happen. So Debbie, do you want to say hello?
Well, it sounds like you introduced me. Debbie Mendoza, I'm a permit technician for the building department and the special event specialist.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Is there anyone here from the city that I missed? Okay, then I am going to go ahead and move forward with the presentation. All right, so I wanted to start just by kind of saying what's new, what's changed. We've introduced two new permits. One is the low impact special event permit. One is the high impact special event permit. I'm going to go into more detail about what those are in a minute. But the key thing to know is that those are permits for events like street fairs, races, parades, large park events, events at Alameda Point. They're going to replace the street closure permit, parade permit, and competitive conditions permits. So if you used those permits in the past, you will now use the high or low impact permit applications. There are a number of permits that are not changing. Those are listed on the right here. So if these are the permits that you usually use, whether it's for a block party or film or photography, you do not need to be at the webinar because those things have stayed the same for now. The other thing that we've done is just tried to provide a ton more information. So you're going to see that throughout the application. You'll see it. We have created special guidelines for Alameda Point, and also a website and various resources on that website. All right, so here's where I kind of want to dig into what the new permits are and kind of what they're used for. So low impact events are events that have fewer than 500 people, are 1 day or less, and do not involve a road or sidewalk closure. High impact events have a higher impact, right? So more than 500 people, 2 consecutive days or more, and do involve a road or sidewalk closure or require city services in some way. You'll also see on this slide we have new deadlines. These are a bit longer than the deadlines that we previous put forward, but we believe these to be much more realistic. So we're looking at 16 business days for low impact events. That's about 1 month, and 48 business days for high impact events. So that's about 3 months. And just as a reminder, the City of Alameda business days are Monday through Thursday. So we have 4 business days in each week. We also are requesting, if it's a high impact event that has never happened in the city before, that we get the application 6 months before the event. And the reason for this is that we have learned through experience that new, really large events can require quite a bit of troubleshooting. And so we want to make sure that we are able to get everything done in the timeline that is needed. And also events at Alameda Point. So this is the reason there's a longer timeline for events at Alameda Point is that many of them require a licensing process where they both need a license with the city to use the space as well as the special event permit. So that takes a bit longer. Oh, there we go. I wanted to talk a little bit about fees. As of right now, the special event permit application fee is not changing, $750, still waived for nonprofits. In terms of materials, we are removing the fee for the no parking signs. That used to be $16 per space per day. But that fee, we're not going to be charging a fee for approved special events for that. And then finally, services that you might need at your event, like you might need police security or an EMT from the fire department or extra inspections, those still may be billed by the hour based on our master fee schedule. So there are a couple things I wanted to mention here. One is that we are looking at a potential program to help events with some of these special event permit costs because, we know they can add up, whether that's lease time or you have to pay for towing, but also kind of to look at some potential costs that fall outside of just in the city costs. That could be, your traffic control plan, your barriers, waste management. So that's something it's still in development, but we are actively working on it, and we're hoping to bring a potential program for City Council in the fall. I do also want to mention that I mentioned the master fee schedule before. That's the document that sets the cost of services in the city based on the cost to provide them. The city, the Planning and Building and Transportation Department is currently undergoing a master fee study to look at the fees for various permits, and that includes the special event permit. So it is possible that these fees may change in the future, but we will definitely kind of keep folks up to date, and that also will need City Council approval. Okay, so in terms of the application itself, our goal here was really to make a more efficient and transparent special event permit application and process. So, one of the big ways we're doing this is through more information. And you may notice that, in fact, the new permit application is much longer. So we're not actually asking for a whole lot of new information on the permit. It's more that we're asking for all of the information we need upfront rather than kind of letting you know about new requirements throughout the process. We are also providing much more information ourselves. You're going to see that throughout the application in call out boxes, and then also on the website, and then in the specific guidelines for Alameda Point. So, our hope is, most permits are still going to have to do at least one round of comments and revisions, but we're hoping to really reduce the number of rounds and the size of those rounds. So we can kind of reduce the amount of back and forth that's required. We also have created a special event committee that will be working with applicants. I'll talk more about that when I get to process. And then finally, applications, ease of application. So Since the pandemic, we've been taking applications strictly electronically. We have made this application a fillable PDF to make it a bit easier for folks to fill out and submit. And then there is some conversation about the possibility to make this a web-based application. That would require a little work on our end, and I'm very curious if folks have thoughts about that or think that would be helpful. I did want to also call out there are 5 attachments that the application requires, or well, requires in some cases and not in others. The first one is site plan. This is something we've always asked for. It's required for all events. This is, kind of your event layout, where the fire lanes are going, where the tents are going to be, that kind of thing. Traffic control detour plans still required for events that are in the public right of way, impacting traffic. Notification plan. This one I wanted to spend a minute on because this one is new. We have always had a requirement that folks have to notify businesses and residents within 300 feet of their event. What we're asking for now is just for you to show us how you're planning to notify people. So that can be a copy of a flyer or an email or however you're planning to do it. And also a map showing us the area that you will be notifying. And that doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be a PDF of a Google map with like a Microsoft Paint circle or a copy of a hand-drawn map or however you want to do it. We just want to know who you will be notifying. The parking plan, this is really just for Alameda Point events. We basically just want to know where folks will be parking so that we can make sure they're doing it in a safe place and that it's also on a property that's appropriate or they have permission to park on, because there are a number of private parking lots out there. And then insurance documents, as we have always required. So I'm going to take a minute and I wanted to show you all the application itself. Let's see if it will let me, get out of my, hold on a sec. Aha, here we go. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Okay, great. I wanted to show you guys the application itself and the website. So it's pretty easy to find. You just go to the City of Alameda's homepage, type in special event in the search bar. And then you get to our new page, and you can see there is quite a lot of information on here. All these drop downs are worth exploring. But a couple things I just wanted to make sure that I pulled out to show you guys is this general resources tab, which has links to other permits you may need, samples of insurance documents, just a lot of stuff we think might be helpful. We also heard from a lot of folks that they wanted a list of folks who can provide traffic control plans and barriers. So we have put this together. It is not a requirement that you use these folks. It is not even a recommendation. This is purely informational, but we did hear that that would be a helpful resource. We also have more information about if you're planning to have large tents, and then environmental guidance, and including we have sample event maps and waste plans here. So we thought that might be helpful for folks. For the permit applications themselves, you can download them here. We have a table that kind of shows different events and the kind of permits that they require. The high impact special event permit, I'm going to show you this very quickly because it's a big document, but these first 2 pages have a lot of really crucial information. I'm going to go over most of this in my presentation, but if you're only reading one part of this, please read these first 2 pages. The 3rd page talks about other permits that you may need. And of course, we wish that we could provide all the permits you might need for your event, but there are permits you might need from the state, like your alcohol permit, or from the county, your food permit. So this is not meant to be exhaustive, but it does include all the potential things that you might need. And then the application itself, we've, as I mentioned, it's a fillable form, and it's just kind of has a lot of space. And not all of these things may apply to every application. So you may be able to skip sections if they do not apply to you. I did want to show you this. One of the appendix 1 kind of lists out the various attachments I mentioned and what should be included in them. So I think that could be a very helpful resource for folks. With that, I'm going to go back to the presentation. I think we were here. Okay. So now talking a little bit about process. So the one thing we really wanted to be clear about is which events require a permit. There's been some confusion about that in the past. So the events that require a special event permit are events in the public right of way, events held on public or city-owned property at Alameda Point, and events, and this third one, it's events on private property that significantly impact the public right of way. So just as an example, we recently had an application for someone to throw a very large event at a venue, a private venue that does not usually have events of that size, and it would generate just a tremendous amount of traffic. So that is something where we did ask them to look at a special event permit. But this could also go for if you're having a private event and you're going to be blocking the road because the band is going to be loading or unloading. So that's the kind of thing this would apply for. And then finally, events in public parks and recreational facilities. I'm sure many of you have worked with our parks district to hold events. If you were doing an event with fewer than 500 people, you'll still go through the normal ARPD process, which is a rental agreement with ARPD. If it's going to be more than 500 attendees, they're asking that instead you do a high impact special event permit. And ARPD will be part of the review process. You would not need to do a separate rental agreement with them. I had also mentioned a special events committee. So this is going to be a regular monthly meeting of all the staff who review special event permits. And the plan is that we are going to invite applicants, and this is just for high impact events, that we'll invite applicants to come and meet with this group. And, they can ask questions, get technical assistance, feedback, provide more information. It's really meant to be a way to have a less formal interaction with staff who are reviewing. It's going to be held once a month. Right now, we're looking at the third Monday of the month at 1 p.m. So I'm hoping we can move forward with that. But we're hoping that will be another great way to kind of reduce the back and forth that I mentioned. And I think that was just an agenda slide. So in terms of, I just wanted to talk very quickly about Alameda Point. We don't have a lot of new rules or regulations, but we did develop these guidelines to try to make it easier to understand what those rules are. And I think the really important thing to know about Alameda Point is that in addition to a special event permit, you do need a licensing agreement with the City of Alameda. And we have lots of instructions on how you can do that. But that is just sort of an extra step, and one of the reasons why we do require 6 months for that process. And in addition, the liability insurance coverage is a bit higher for Alameda Point because we're doing this licensing agreement. So it's just a bit different than the special event permit insurance. So I also wanted to mention at Alameda Point, because there is this licensing agreement, there are some additional fees. There can be a licensing fee and a refundable security deposit. Sometimes that fee is waived, but not always. And then there can be fees for cancellation or location changes. There are also a few special requirements that apply to Alameda Point that don't apply to other locations. There are some environmental restrictions. I'm sure some of you have run across the lease turn in your experience. The parking plan that I mentioned. And then finally, there may be occasions where you are asked to have, if you're having a particularly large event or an event that's going to impact a lot of businesses, we may ask you to meet with members of the community out there to talk about and troubleshoot the event. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and open it up to any questions that folks might have. Are there any questions that we can, I see a couple faces on the line here. Oh, I see Kathy has a question.
So what is, and apologies if you touched on this before, but like ideally, what's the turnaround time on, submitting an application and going through the process?
So for a high impact event that's happened in the city before, it's about 3 months.
Okay.
If it's a new event, we're asking for something more like 6 months so that we have more time to troubleshoot any potential issues. And then for low impact events, it's about 1 month.
Okay.
I have some questions I could ask some of our panelists. Captain Emmett, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the police department is looking at when they're thinking about security for an event, and maybe how that works if police security is required.
Sure. So a few of the things that we look at is the first one would be the size of the event. So the number of people that you're anticipating to show up. The location is another one, especially when you talk about places that are out on the old Navy base. There's a lot of places that lighting is not very good. So late night events out on the base, we want to make sure, to your point about parking, if ride shares are going to be utilized, that there's a clear lane of traffic for people to travel so that we don't have any collisions that occur out there. Another thing that we really look at is alcohol. And if you're looking to serve alcohol at your events, what type of alcohol? Is it beer and wine? Is it beer, wine, and spirits? Those are the things that we look at that help us determine if we would suggest that you have some type of security, whether it's us or private security.
Thank you. Oh, we have a question. I see Randy Bradley asked a question, but you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay, so we followed your process when we had the fashion fair, which was a small event, less than 500. And my question is for the antiques fair. It's been going for 25 years and it's every single month. And we have always done a different process for that. Are you changing that? Are we going to use this process now for the antiques fair?
No, the antiques fair has
a permit. It's very different.
Yeah, yes.
I just didn't know if you considered us a large scale it's ongoing.
Yeah, so special event permits are intended for kind of one-off events. If it's a recurring event, then it triggers a use permit, and that is not broached. So we have not.
Okay, awesome. All right, just want to make sure. Thank you.
I saw another question in the chat. Question for police department. Is there, hold on, a recommended security guard to attendee count ratio, 1 guard for every 50 attendees?
No, there's no set standard. Again, I think it just depends on the type of event that you're going to host. And when you reach out to those companies, they would probably have their own recommendation from their employee safety and security standpoint. But we don't have a specific metric that we would use.
Thank you.
Can I bring up something? This is Debbie Mendoza.
Yes.
During the months of April to August, that is the least terns nesting season at Alameda Point. So I just want to make sure that applicants are aware of this, and that could affect their particular event application. They can check with the wildlife to see if their event may cause a problem, or Alameda Point. I'm sure Christopher Perez is very aware and works with them on that.
Thank you, Debbie. That's a great point. Let's see. So I have a question for the risk management folks. I don't know if I know when we were going through this process, you mentioned there were a couple things that folks usually have trouble with on the application, and I wonder if one of you would mind just kind of sharing some general recommendations for folks.
Sure, I'll take that. Basically, we need to make sure on special event permits that the City of Alameda is named as an additional insured, which translates, as you may all know, that the city is effectively like it suggests it means an additional insured. We can make a claim on your policy if the city is for some reason sued due to your event. Doesn't happen very often, but it is something that we need to ensure that we are being careful and careful with public resources. So in order to document that, there are a couple of different ways. The first thing that you should do, however, is to talk to your insurance broker or agent about how best to reflect that in your insurance documents. I know that the new permit application in Appendix 6 has a very complete list and description of how to go about obtaining additional insurance through a third party if your insurance doesn't have, it doesn't permit you to get to name the city as an additional insured. So I'm not going to talk about that because Amanda has laid it out very carefully in Appendix 6. But one thing I will highlight, the two things that we do need that sometimes our wires get crossed with the public. So to be very clear, is we need a certificate of insurance, which is something you're probably familiar with if you've ever had need to look at your insurance policy. It's basically the Cliff Note version of your policy, which it states what kind of insurance you have. If you have general liability insurance, it provides the limits of your coverage. If you have automobile coverage, it states that. It's a one-page form, almost certainly. Importantly, that document says at the top, every one that I've seen, that the certificate of insurance itself is not proof of coverage. So that certificate of insurance is a helpful guide, but it's not enough for you or for our purposes, the city, to use if we ever had need to make a claim on your insurance policy. So the second document that we require is called an additional insured endorsement, which an endorsement is just an amendment to your policy. And so an additional insured endorsement means that it's an amendment to your insurance policy showing that the City of Alameda, its city council, employees, there's a list of individuals that get named under the city umbrella, that all of those parties are included as additional insureds in your policy. So an additional insured endorsement can look one of two ways. It can be a specific endorsement that you would have to have your insurance company generate, which would basically be a 1 or 2 page document that says everything I just mentioned, which is the City of Alameda, its employees, council, agents, and so on are hereby included as additional insureds under Company X's general liability policy. That's one option. The second option, which a lot of policies have now, is called a blanket insured endorsement, that's generally what it's referred to. And what that means is it is an endorsement to your policy, again, an amendment to your policy that you may get when you get your policy, that simply says any entity that you, the company contracts with, that requires itself to be named as an additional insured is hereby considered an additional insured. So what that translates into is, because you are signing an indemnity agreement with the city, and we are requiring you as part of the special event permit process to name the city as an additional insured, that blanket endorsement lumps us in. So those are those two documents, the certificate of insurance and the additional insured endorsement, are the two documents that we need in order to have it proven to us that you have complied with the insurance requirements in the special event permit, which I, again, just compliment Amanda and her team on having a lot of very specific instructions in Appendix 6.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I see we've just been joined by Pat Russi from ARPD. Hi, Pat. We are at the Q&A portion.
Sorry, I know. It's been a busy day. Sorry.
I totally get it. Does anyone have any other questions? Rena?
I would just like to add that the name of the applicant or the name of the company must match the indemnity agreement, which also must match the insured, the certificate of insurance. So everything, they can't all be in different names. They have to all be the same name.
Thank you. Any other questions or anyone else have anything they want to mention? I think one thing I'd like to just share with folks on the call. So, you know, this is we recently revised this. It's a pretty big change. You know, if as you're using the application, you notice anything that's not working or, you know, please just let us know, right? Because our goal is to make this a better process and an easier process. So, you know, you can always reach out to me with questions about the revisions. Debbie Mendoza will continue to be the contact for specific applications. But we are here to help and to work with you all to make this better. So with that, I'd like to thank all of the city staff who are attending. Really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. This team is not only here on this webinar, but they also worked very closely with me throughout the process to make it happen. So just very much appreciate it, and also greatly appreciate the community members who joined the call. And we look forward to working with you. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.